and current United States Moscone Cup captain Jeremy Jones. It's going to be an interesting one, this, and Dao in particular has got pedigree, former World Nineball Championship quarter-finalist.
Yeah, and I met his opponent, young man in the red, at the Perry Open, and boy, he was an excited player to be there with all the other champions from around the world showing up at that event prior to this event. A little warm-up, but he called it a little warm-up, but it was a great event there at the Perry Open, and now on to the Hanoi Open, and now he's in action. It's going to be a great day, too. Back to round one. We have a split schedule the first 2 days, which all the players love, and now to tee off in day two. Dao to break the balls.
Yeah, what you were saying about the Perry Open, Jeremy, I think it underlines the strength of the World Nineball Tour. The fact that what was, yeah, you're right, a warm-up event had a first prize of $25,000.
Yeah, 105 or 104 or $5,000 purse, and you know, that was one thing. The purse was awesome, and awesome to have an event prior to the Hanoi right here, just 30, 40 minutes across town. But all the hard work, and what a beautiful establishment as well. Okay, we'll see. Probably chips the blue 2 into the green 6, running the cue ball couple rails back behind that little package of balls on the left side of the table. Looks like the route kind of takes him a little bit towards this lower left corner, so he's got to pay attention to the speed. The 2's going to be okay. Just make sure you don't try to get anything extra out of this and lose the white ball. Boy, and what a win that was yesterday for Nook against Carlo Beato. And we talked about it in matches prior. There were a few of the big, heavy favorites that were kind of letting some players hang around. And, okay, he was trying to come behind the 9. Just going to miss it a little bit. Speed was very good as far as the cue ball. But there were players that let some, like I said, underdogs hang around, and you just wondered if that kept happening, would that produce a big upset, and it certainly did.
Well, what we can say is that 3 Vietnamese players already are through to winners qualification. Nguyen An Tuan, obviously no with that win over Carlo Beato, and Trinh Van Bin. I think that number will undoubtedly increase today.
Yeah, absolutely, and I think the tables are going to start to play even tougher, and that'll separate some things. But at times, though, I think that actually gives the underdog a bit more of a chance. Some think otherwise, but I think that time at the table lets them settle in, and you get a little more of their game than we might find sometimes with the slightly bigger pockets and the better players just kind of steamroll at times. Funny little shot here. It's like he can come across the face of the 2 and try to guide the cue ball between the 3 and the purple 5. Let it roam down towards the brown 7. It's got a lot of cover that way. Oddly enough, all the balls on the left side of the table. You don't see that very often. But that usually makes for kind of a difficult rack.
Might have told you this story before, Jeremy. In 1986, there was a very surprise winner of the World Snooker Championship, Joe Johnson, who I've gone on to commentate an awful lot with over the years. And he was a very popular figure. He was the quintessential outsider. He beat Steve Davis in the final. Major upset. Anyway, he was booked for all kinds of stuff after that, one of which was an exhibition on a cruise liner that was docked. But he broke off in the first frame, and all the balls went to one side. They were all hugging the left-hand side cushion, so it became apparent very quickly that he wasn't able to play snooker. So he did a Q&A and a few exhibition shots, and that was that.
Yeah, well, that's great. I don't think I've heard that one, Phil, and I usually don't mind hearing them again, especially from someone like yourself.
the other unlikely location for an exhibition, not involving Joe, but Stephen Hendry certainly was involved in this. They played on a North Sea oil rig. Had to get a helicopter out there from Aberdeen out into the North Sea, and yeah, played a snooker exhibition on a full-size table on an oil rig.
Yeah, they're you know, back in the day, Jeanette Lee used to do a lot with the military, and there were pictures of her flying into some of the big carriers, you know, aircraft carriers and whatnot, and it was always incredible to see, not only just getting you there, but then performing afterwards. All right, a little tight going by the 7, but shouldn't be a problem. And again, this is back to round 1. The first 2 days are split schedule in the bracket, and something that was changed last year that the players, again, really love. Don't have to wait a day. They're going to play at least 2 matches today. And that's good, because even if you lose, you're kind of ready to get back out there unless it was really something disturbing. And if you win, of course, you're ready to get back out there and play another match. Nice positional play. A little tight there at the purple 5. All right, type of shot you can catch a little thick, so just pay attention. Doe looks very prepared here early. Should just pull the cue ball up the rail, much closer to the brown 7. Love to fall straight and just have the 8 in that middle pocket at the bottom of your screen. Makes for just a couple stop shots. I was talking about this. He looks like he may draw back for the corner, and that's fine. Nothing wrong with that. Talking about yesterday, though, you know, for your new pool players or amateurs or, you know, very avid players, if you're wanting to learn a little something about position, try practicing like running out where you move the cue ball the absolute least amount to get position, and start to teach you a lot.
He's a class act, Dao Phuc An, as he showed there. That was efficient and a really good start to his first experience of playing a major event on the World Nineball Tour on home soil. He leads by 1 rack to 0. By the way, it's not an easy passage this for whoever wins this match, because in the next round they will play the winner of the all-Filipino clash, which is going on right now between Jeffrey De Luna and John Rebong. So no bargain there.
No, that Filipino flag, whether you know him or not, which I don't know a lot about that second name you mentioned there, but I'm sure he's part of that young contingent that played at the Perry Open and had so much results. Now, De Luna looked in pretty good form at the Perry as well. And I think, you know, we talked about De Luna so much right after that great U.S. Open in 2019, and we all know what the upside is. And sometimes when we start to not talk as much is when they start to really shine for some reason. So we'll see about De Luna this week, but he's got his hands full here in his first round.
We'll see this break off, and then I'll tell you about what happened here late last night. One finding the side, and although the 2 isn't available, he has the tactical initiative at the very least. Yeah, basically we had pool yesterday in this arena for over 11 hours solid. The last match on, well, they had to be put on the clock at one point because it was so lengthy, especially the early racks. In the end, Antonio Skikaris of Greece beat New Zealand's Sullivan Clark 9-8 late on, well past 10 o'clock local time.
Well, a lot of times with that situation of a shot clock being implemented, more often than not, it's kind of one player. So, you know, I know it's hard without really having someone to definitely, you know, define the situation. But I think at times, you know, or we may move forward to where the shot clock's put on one player instead of both. It's a hard proposition, though.
I was watching that match, table side actually, and although I suspect I know who was the culprit, the point is I think the other player was relieved to just have the shot clock anyway, because it enabled both to play with more freedom. I think it actually helped both of them.
Yeah, and that's usually the case. Just like whenever they get a warning about a soft break, it seems like they start to break better. So difficult little tricky rack here, the 2 and 3 obviously, but getting to the 4. But then it starts to get tricky with the 5 to the 6 and so on. So Dao, who doesn't really, you'll see it throughout the racks, he doesn't produce a lot of power in his stroke, but he's very accurate, very smart with his decisions. You'll see the break, maybe sometimes the balls won't open quite as much as we see from other players, but very, very sound overall.
And at the end of this rack, I'll tell you about his greatest achievement, which was notable, actually.
Okay, it looks like he may draw above the 9 for that gap between the 6-7, or 6-9 rather. Usually plays a very good cue ball. He's going to come back between that 6-9, 2 rails. Now here he wants to go ahead and be aggressive. If he can get to the middle of the table, he can handle actually a lot of angles, but if he gets above this pink 4, should be pretty easy to get on the 5. But getting on the 5 correctly with the 7-9 there is going to be pretty essential to get on the 6. Love to at least get the cue ball in position where it's at now. He could be aggressive trying to come down between the 9 and 5. That would be like ideal position. Little touchy. Does he come in between the 6-9 or above the 9? I like that right there. Now, as he comes across, of course, he may land near the rail. This happens a lot, but he wants to carry an angle. He came underneath the 9. Very smart, but again, if he gets near this rail and not much angle, that's why I was curious. Would he come above the 9, guaranteeing the angle, just in case he lands on the rail, and now some problems?
Yeah, because he has to hit this with pace, and of course, if you do that, it reduces the effective size of the pocket.
Yeah, well, especially what happens with that, what people don't realize sometimes, it's not always just the pace, but the pace makes you hit the ball not always so accurately, you know. So I think that's more of it. Wants to just creep this 2 rails above the 9. Watch out for the side.
But not out of the woods yet.
No, absolutely not. But you got to like the way he's piecing it together, and that's really his advantage when he plays, is a little more working mentality, just doing all he can to get through the racks. And as you do that more and more, start to loosen up a little bit, not as many worries. And when you're working at it, you kind of ignore the situation a little more. That's what the routine's all about. is to kind of dilute that you're in the Hanoi Open, that you're playing another great player, and everything means so much.
Now that cue ball just turned slightly to the right as we're looking, and that made this pot a little more difficult.
Yeah, this is the epitome of the 50-yard line. And key to these shots, of course, you'll go see a player look the 9 to the pocket. That's usually the last thing they do. And then you just got to trust what you see from there when you get down on the ball. Wow, he's cutting it to the other side. Is that a reaching thing right here? Why he's cutting it to that pocket?
Well, the 9 ball is missed. I was with you, Jeremy, as he came down to play the shot. I naturally assumed he would play it into the other top corner.
Yeah, the cue ball was just a little hint on that good side of the other corner, it seemed like. And now really our first good look. I think he's got to shoot from here. I mean, safety very difficult. You can kind of get yourself going with some momentum burying this bank shot. And you always have a chance of a little bit of a fluke or maybe leaving something difficult. Like here, this may get on the end rail. This may go in the lower right corner. I think it will.
What a fluke that was to start the day. All around the table. In it went very fortuitously. Obviously, there was a missed 9 ball involved there anyway, so you could say that Dao Phuc An was partially to blame for his downfall, but this was really, really, really lucky.
Yeah, just catching the outside of the pocket. The speed was perfect, but he played it right, running the cue ball up the table. If he didn't, get so fortunate, he was going to leave something long, is what he anticipated.
Dao Phuc An back on level terms at 1 rack each, even though the amount of balls he's potted, well, you can count them very easily on one hand. Now then, let me give you some of the early scores. John Lagarde from the Philippines has made a flying start against Win Dang Bak. Leads 3-0. A couple of very talented Spaniards involved this morning. Jose Alberto Delgado 2-1 up on Win Van Dat, and Jonas Suto Camino has been making an impression over in the USA. He's 3-0 up on Tran Trung An. Also an American making a good start. BJ Usuri 2-0 up on Lee Ngok An. Jan van Leerup 2-0 up on Win Tuan Son, and So Shaw 2-1 up on Win Phuc Quang. By the way, if you're thinking, well, there's lots of Vietnamese players involved in this, you are correct. A little over 80. That's roughly a third of the field. Anyway, the good luck has just dissipated.
Yeah, you need a little luck to keep the cue ball out of that side. That's the scratch that the players aren't too happy with. They get a lot of scratches with the cut break. Just the cue ball moving and a lot of balls interfering in the path, a lot of kisses here and there. But when you go one rail on the side with not much interference, that's the one that stings a bit. And I'll tell you, we always talk about it, or at least I bring it up, that ball in hand really makes you forget quickly about a big mistake there in game number 2. Just a little draw stroke here. Another one, he's got to stay away from landing straight and on the rail. So he may overdraw this trying to get to the bottom cushion. Okay, he's going to stay away from the rail, which is half the battle. It is going to fall pretty straight though.
He's got pedigree as Dao Phuc An. In 2019 at the World Nineball Championship won by a teenage Fedor Gorst. He got to the quarterfinals. Now he lost there to Ko Ping Chung 11-6, but before that, in the 3 matches immediately preceding the quarters, he beat David Al-Kaidi, Chris Melling and Walid Majid.
Yeah, definitely. I mean, he's solid. I mean, we'll see when some of those long shots come in, you know, how he can handle those. I think the breaking as he moves on in this event, he's going to have to stick to his guns and realize, you know, he doesn't break them quite as hard, but he can become still pretty consistent on making that one in the side. The lighter breaks. Ooh. So again, these pockets are not to be fooled with. All those little shots you must pay attention to, and I think, you know, that's a mistake there that hurts a little worse than the 9, in my opinion.
And you know, this is exactly what we saw in the Carlo Biardo match. He missed a few early, and you think, well, it won't really matter. In the end, it did.
Yeah, that's what we're talking about. You give them a little more time as an underdog at the table, and of course, it can get a little mental for any player, no matter how great they are. He caught the 8, kind of let up on it a little bit. And it seems like that happens a lot when the object ball is near a rail, like you're a little worried about jumping it too much. You have to cut it. Maybe the cue ball goes off the table. You just got to, you know, swing at it and see what happens. Actually hit a little right English on that, which probably, when you hit a little English on it, especially not intended, you don't get as much energy into the cue ball, and it doesn't jump near as well.
And he caught a healthy portion of the 8, not just a sliver.
That's right. Okay, is he just going to kind of stay there for a 9, come out just mildly? Okay, he's going to come 2 rails. And you can tell, very good cue ball. Very good cue ball, which is a big portion of the battles in 9-ball pool.
Dao Kien, the favourites to win this match, regains the lead at 2-1. Out there on the tables right now, a couple of past Mosconi Cup heroes for Europe. Mika Immonen 3-0 up on Do Kai. But Chris Melling, he's 2-1 down to a Japanese opponent, Takashi Uraka.
Yeah, and I kind of feel like Melling, you know, he comes to this part of the world quite often. I feel like maybe he'd be a little more acclimated than some of the other players from abroad.
Well, I know he only flew in yesterday.
Wow. Well, maybe he was in Asia already?
Apparently not, because the guy who picked us up at the airport, myself and Michael McMullen, said that he'd got to go to pick Chris up on the same flight that we got in the following day. Welshman Marcel Price and Frank Gadsden of the USA. They're 1 rack each. Jonas Suto Camino, a fine young player from Spain, got bags of potential. He's now 4-0 up on Tran Trung An. And BJ Usuri now 4-0 up on Lee Ngok An. Am I saying Usuri right?
Yeah.
Good.
Usuri, I think he goes by Usuri more than Usuri, but I've heard it both ways. And Frank, the man you mentioned, American, he's actually stationed in South Korea. He's not part of the military, but he works for the military services, the American military services in South Korea. Met him yesterday. Real nice guy. All right, so we really get a little more look here with ball in hand, and of course not just a 9-ball to chip in or that jump shot. So we'll see a little more of the pattern play, a little more of the thinking from Dao here. Oh, cue ball's got to go a bit. Got to go. So maybe the jump cue again.
There are two gaps there. The gap to get through to the red 3 ball, and also the gap for the 3 to go past the 9 to knock it in.
Yeah, and it was a 9 that was missed and then fluked in, but then a scratch on the break, so Dao got right back to the table. Now a scratch on the break from Dao and a missed position on the first shot. So things need to settle in for both players a bit. Talk about that a lot on day one, and essentially this is their day one. So Shaw in the building playing today.
Yeah, he's out on table 26. 3-1 up on Win Phuc An. Well, it wasn't an absolute gimme, far from it. But you expect someone of his ability, his class, his stature to knock that in. The outsider being given, well, a degree of hope.
Yeah, absolutely. And we talked about this with a couple other players yesterday. And watch Dao, and you know his pre-strokes are pretty sharp and kind of quick, and that doesn't set up so well for the lighter shots at times. You know, especially when your nerves get going a little bit. We saw that yesterday with Win On Tan on some shots, and now he seemed to get it together and then played a really nice second round match. So I think Dao's got to just settle in a bit. But I'll tell you, I like the kids' cue action here. I mean, I know he's a young player and probably nervous as heck, but I like what I see as far as the cue movement.
Yeah, in terms of experience, you can definitely pick, if you didn't know already, which one was the newcomer, if you like, the raw talent, and which one is the experienced player. We saw that yesterday in a number of matches. It was patently obvious. But I'll tell you what, Dao Kien is not firing yet. That 6-9 combination refusing to drop.
Yeah, I'm surprised he shot it with a high ball. Most players would like a draw stroke with that kind of. Oh, but these tables, I'm telling you, they're tightening up. It is Southeast Asia, and there's a lot of moisture and humidity, and these tables are going to be no joke as the week moves on.
Indeed. Well, it was third time that 6-9 was attempted, and the third time it was pretty much impossible to miss. So, although he's not playing anywhere near his best, Dao Kien now takes a 3-1 lead. Another Filipino who we've not really heard a lot of, John Vicedo. He's 4-1 up on Win Tuan Tan. PJ Ussery now 5-0 up. Jan van Leerup, a fine player from Holland, 4-0 up on Win Tuan Son. And the two Spaniards are going nicely. They've played collectively 11 racks between them and lost only one. Jose Alberto Delgado 5-1 ahead of a Vietnamese opponent. Jonas Suter Camino 5-0 up. So it looks as though they're going to make quick work of their first assignment.
Yeah, at the beginning of the year, Matchroom, I'm not so sure. You may have been one of the people they asked. They put out a little questionnaire to a few of us. One of the questions was, you know, of some name players, but ones that really have, you know, younger, that feel like may, you know, have a big win on the World Nineball Tour this year in 2023. Who you got? And Camino Sudo was my pick, and you know, he hadn't won a major, but he did win the Super Billiard Expo this year, which I think is his biggest win to date. And a fine player from Spain that follows in the footsteps of FSR and, of course, David Alcady. Our first dry break. I don't think that was a terrible decision to go for the kick. Now, very difficult to get on the 2 since he's knocked the 3 here after missing the kick shot. The cue ball came around, bumped the 3 in a little bit of an awkward position to get position on the 2. Now he's going to slide down. He's going to try and use the bottom rail. Coming off the side cushion here. Going past the brown 7. Looks like the speed is very good. Fell a little straight. He's going to be upset about that. And again, he's a player that really wants his cue ball in good position, expects it in a good position, and now falling straight again. Should be able to draw underneath the 7 and back out. And good thing the 6 isn't that far away from that purple 5. Little across the table, but doable. You can see the heavy pre-strokes, very, what's the word, sharp maybe, and that agrees a little more with the heavier strikes, draw strokes, a little more power here and there, but we'll see if a few delicate ones and come along and how he responds to that.
Yeah, those pre-strokes are not smooth.
Yeah, he's a little like Efren, where now the pre-strokes I'm talking about aren't, but what I mean is he has a little pause at the cue ball, and then he takes one more pump and into the shot, where most players have a pause at the cue ball and then take the stroke. So he kind of winds it up right here, right? And then he'll have his pause there, and then one more little pump into the shot. And that's a sign of a player that started at a very young age, usually. Usually kids feel the wind up into the stroke a little more than someone that starts a little later.
Well, that was a very poor effort. He had a large margin of error. And to be so heavy-handed and drop on the 8 ball, that's a mistake that should have been avoided.
Yeah, and touch, that's the problem. When you have those sharp ones, really, you kind of can lose your speed control at times. Should be okay to leave something difficult, whether he pushes off the left or right side of the 8 or shoots in that direction. I think he's going to edge it. I thought he could maybe kind of hit down on it, send the 8 into the side cushion and to that short rail as he brought the cue ball maybe behind the 9. So he's just going to try and edge this, leave the 8 in position there, and run the cue ball safe. Looks pretty good and getting better. Not sure he got the snooker, but definitely difficult.
Well, certainly based on the way the match has gone so far, I would say you would be odds against to pot it now. But I'll tell you what, he's defied those odds. That was a tremendous pot.
Yeah, really good. And got a little on the 50 here. Assuming he should take the cut in that left middle side pocket. You don't want to baby this. A lot of players think, oh, let me leave him on the end rail here, and what happens is that 9 will hit the outer jaw and just lay up in the side anyway, so you're not going to fire it, but go ahead and commit to the stroke a little bit. Maybe looking at a bank. Okay.
And in it went without touching the sides. And so, Dao is only one behind now at 3-2. Nicely played shot that, Jeremy.
Yeah, absolutely. Great shot on the 8, even better on the 9, and that should help the Mendel a little bit.
Just back on the subject of Jonas Suter Camino, who's now 6-0 up on Phuc An. Well, we know he won that Super Billiards Expo, as Jeremy was telling us. Recently returned to the USA, where he was 5th in the Turning Stone Classic, beating Jason Shaw, who owns that tournament, doesn't he? On the way to 5th place. Then he went down to Rhode Island, and at the wonderfully named Runham Racks Billiards Bar and Grill in Johnston, he won a tournament on the Joss Northeast Nineball Tour. So Jonas Suter Camino having a great time and always a threat.
Yeah, and a regional tour that's been around a long time and always has quite a few fine players in each event. Of course, the climax for that tour is always Turning Stone. Okay, he was going to lose the cue ball again. Got a fortunate kiss. Got a ball down. Pretty nice spread, but the blue 2 trapped on the bottom rail. So we'll see what kind of push-out thoughts he has here. And what is game number 6?
The thing is, Dao Kien must fight the thought that he could be 5-0 ahead. He missed a 9-ball in the second rack. Then, of course, Dao fluked it. There, he looked certain to run out, played a very poor positional shot onto the 8. Ended up losing that rack as well. And so even though it's 3-2, might well have been 5-0.
Absolutely, and of course just making mistakes can get aggravating for any players, especially the better ones. And Dao didn't have to get out of his chair to pass this push out back with the 8 creeping back over the cue ball. Boy, this is a tough one. Oh, he jumped that easily. He's going to get a little reward for it as well. Yeah, and usually matches like the one we had with Carlo yesterday will wake some of these other better players up at times in the early rounds, and couldn't really pinpoint why that match went a little sideways for Carlo, but certainly looked like he was going to pull it out, meaning kind of, get into his normal form during the match, but then just another little mistake here and there crept in. Boy, what's he doing here? Is he trying to edge this? This is tough. Easy to scratch on that.
By the way, the match on table 2, Jeffrey DeLuna and John Rebong. Well, Rebong leads 3-2. Dennis Okoye coming up next over there.
I think the 9-ball's got in play here a little bit. Maybe not. Could certainly jump this. Maybe has a shot for the 3 in the corner. Yeah, I think that's what he's going to take on. Pretty nice stroke. Still, though, like I said, tables are getting difficult. should be able to chip this in, come down one rail, to the right side of the table. Pretty perfect speed there. Now choice. Most would just play the 5. After knocking this pink 4, they play the 5 in the corner by the 8. That kind of naturally takes you forward. Some may come down for the 5 on the side, but that could get you out of line, so we'll see. Yeah, I like this shot.
He'll be very keen here to eliminate any kind of misjudgment. Just win the rack and keep Dao at arm's length.
He overcut that a little bit, so the English took a bit more, and he's okay, just a little disturbed that he's not getting the cue ball where he wants and not striking the object ball exactly how he wants from shot to shot. I'm surprised he's jacking up here. I thought he could follow this, go across the table and back over. So he may take more of a shot on the 7 than we think.
That will please him.
Yeah, absolutely.
There's no doubt in terms of balls potted, in terms of table time. Dao Kien has been the dominant player. His lead could, you might say, should have been a little bigger than it is, but I think he'll settle for 4-2 after the way he improved there and looked good in rack 6. Mika Immonen, former US Open champion, 4-2 up on Dao Kai. Tang Ching Ting of Chinese Taipei, 6-0 up on Abdullah Al Khwatan. Same scoreline for Alvin and Jito over Tran Tien Tang. And Chris Melling, after falling 2-1 behind against his Japanese rival Takashi, well, Melling now leads 3-2. As we explained yesterday, 26 tables in operation in this vast arena, plus 6 practice tables in there. And I'll tell you what, there are more potentially you could put in. A lot more.
Oh, absolutely. Yeah, it's a big venue and super nice venue as well. We'll see these stands get more packed and a lot more spectators than it looks, just because the setup for these first few days are set up where the players can roam, the spectators can roam around and get close to the tables. You know, watch a match here and then move on to another one, and just in case they're hearing this one's close, there's some live scoring all over the arena. It's just a really beautiful setup.
Yeah, the big scoreboard with all of the score updates is available right there. And I'll tell you what, that's a wonderful addition, because it enables spectators to realise what's going on, where and when.
Yeah, absolutely. And of course, I've been to Jerry World there at AT&T Stadium there in Dallas, and the Jumbotron there is like no other. But I tell you, for the World Nineball Tour, that one's pretty special. The one we have here at the Hanoi Open. Okay, we need some power here with the draw stroke. Probably maybe cheats the pocket a little bit, trying to draw up the left, or just straight underneath where he's standing. Yeah, that one's going to need a friendly bump, and it looks like it may get it. No, that's going to be a little light.
At least if he can see the 2, he's got plenty of balls to hide behind. Well, it was an optical illusion really on the main view. We thought the cue ball was a little closer to the 7 than it actually is.
Yeah, I knew it was going to get a little bump. Okay, he manipulated that with some spin though, some right English. And that's one of the shots I was a little worried about with the technique. You know, something soft would spin, and you know, we'll see as he moves on the event, maybe the nerves grow how those are handled, but very nice there.
Yeah, did really well to hold the cue ball. In fact, he's held it a fraction too much. But shouldn't be an issue to get on the pink 4. Well, I thought he'd make that bank, I really did.
Yeah, and good call there, Phil. He played the bank because he didn't anticipate holding the ball as much as he did there on the 2. And most all those players fancy their chances on that cross corner, especially when they know there's a bit of a backdoor safety in there with the 4-9.
First result of the day. The victory goes to a man we've been talking about already. Jonas Suto Camino, not just a victory, a whitewash, 9-0 over Tran Trung An. So Camino now plays in round 2, either Tuan Win or Lee Din Min. And right now that's a much slower going affair. Tuan Win leads 3-2.
Yeah, well, Comina, he can definitely get going on you. And when he's feeling good and things are going in, he can pick up the speed as well. And undoubtedly broke and ran a lot of racks in that match. Only, what, 49 minutes in? 50 minutes in?
Well, the contact was made on the 3, but the cue ball ended up off the table in a pocket. It's been one of those frustrating games for Dao Phuc An. Just when it looks as though he's going to take control, something happens.
Yeah, and it's, you know, deja vu from a couple matches yesterday, and especially that Carlo Beato match where, you know, you let him hang around, those races become shorter to the finish. And you know, Nineball pool, one of the great things about it is just anything may happen at any moment.
And I think one of the stories of that Carlo Beato match was when he went 8-5 down, you thought about no, and you thought, well, he's still got a chance here because of the winner breaks format. And that also comes into it if, as you say, Dao can hang around, even if he stays 2 behind, you've always got that opportunity towards the end.
Yeah, and we haven't seen the best from Kien yet, but I don't think we've seen the best from this young man either. I think he's a little nervous, right? Playing a countryman that he knows is one of the top players here in Vietnam. And I think maybe just start to knock in some balls. Don't think so much. That had to go in. He's already enjoyed one fluke on the 9 in the second rack.
Thought the 6 ball might be fluking in there for a moment. I think it's an interesting contrast, these two. You've got the regimented pre-shots or pre-strokes of Dao Phuc An. As for Dao Phuc An, well, when he's down on the shot, the routine isn't uniform.
No, for sure, but what happens is some of these vets from Vietnam, you know, they kind of were the first to come along as good players, and, you know, like the Philippines, to be fair, you know, the technique, you know, Efren says that I wish that technique was more of a thing whenever I was coming up, and it's just, you know, same thing with Vietnam. That's why you see like the heavier pre-strokes and stuff like that. If you're in a real training setting with coaches, that's going to be something that maybe going to try and get fixed a little bit more, or maybe not let set in as a total habit.
Well, another ball is missed by Dao Kien. He's missing a lot of balls actually into that same pocket. He's smiling, but you know he's not happy. Okay, he applied an awful lot of side to that shot, which increased the difficulty, but nevertheless uncharacteristic.
Okay, it was a bank that got him on the board with a bit of a fluke. Does he go for one here? I guess not. Not terrible, just trying to kind of live in for another day. Here in rack number 7. Could go for the bank, moving the cue ball 3 rails around for the 8. A lot of players would try to play the cue ball behind the 8 for the safety. Just slowly kind of drag it. Go 1 or 2 rails.
Pretty much maximum distance between cue ball and object ball.
Yeah, and he's missed some balls, but he's not going to miss out on using that brain and recognizing that still big favorite in this match. We'll just see how it plays out. It's got to slow down a bit.
I'll tell you what, Jeremy, the 7 ball was close to the centre pocket there, but do not be confused. That was not an easy shot, especially with the application of side.
No, absolutely. He read my mind, and that one actually should make him feel a little bit better about things. Calm down after another miss, and uh-oh. But that's a little deceleration there, and I think that's really promoted again from those heavier pre-strokes.
Well, it's 75 days until Christmas, but Dao Phuc An has been given one gift after the next already.
Yeah, and becoming a little comical to Dao at the moment, and he's got to shore those things up. You got to feel like he's going to get past this match, but whew, you never know.
Oh, the gift is returned.
Yeah, but that's what happens when the better player, it seems like, makes some mistakes. Not anything easy, even after a miss. Should have some speed on this.
I'll tell you what, it's a funny old game, as they say about soccer, but pool is also a funny old game. He's missed some pots he would never miss. He's played some positional shots that he couldn't quite believe were so off the mark, and yet the 9 ball from distance, yeah, that brings a genuine smile to the face. Dao Phuc An leads by 5 racks to 2, a little more than halfway to winning his opening round match. Already through the opening round, Tang Ching Ting of Chinese Taipei. Alvin and Jito on the hill against Tran Tian Thang at 8-0. Mika Immonen 5-2 over Do Kei. Chris Melling and Takashi of Japan 4-4. It's a case of racks being traded there. Marcel Price 4-2 up on Frank Gatson. John Lagarde of the Philippines, they've got such strength in depth. He's now on the hill against Win Dang Bak at 8-1. Also on the hill, Jose Alberto Delgado, 8-1 over Win Van Dat. And John Vasedo of the Philippines, 7-3 up on Win Tuan Tan. And BJ Usuri of the United States, 6-3 over Lee Phuc An.
And you can just see it's just Do doesn't get quite the power that a lot of players do, but so it's not going to be a lot of extra balls made on the break. It's got to be mainly the one in the side. And now a very difficult push out, so he may take on the 2-rail kick behind the one here, trying to send the one up table and to keep the cue ball down on the bottom. Good effort. Can't always predict.
Yesterday, Jeremy, I said to Carl that between certain racks I'd ask him a general question about pool. Maybe about pool history or your own experiences. So I'll do that to you at the end of this rack. Won't give you the question. It's nothing controversial. I've just thought of one.
Well, we don't have much controversial in pool anyways.
Yeah, there's not much sunshine in Phoenix.
Yeah, right.
The Atlanta Braves are no good in MLB.
Yeah.
Yeah, that kind of stuff. Yeah, I know what you mean.
Okay. That's got to go. I don't know if it's going to get a rail. Don't think the cue ball got there. So that should be ball in hand. I think anyways, I thought the cue ball was a little light.
We'll see off the replay, Jeremy, here.
Didn't see really a bounce, and maybe though. I mean, the players are there at the table. Yeah, it was ball in hand.
I think in fairness to Dao Phuc An, he did say to his opponent, it is ball in hand. You saw the gesture, actually. I didn't know what the gesture was at the time, but now I...
Yeah, it makes sense. Yeah, it's been not a lot of time, but several days I got to talk with him at the Perry Open, that being Dao, man in the chair. Just a super, super friendly kid, and that's what I saw and why Vietnam is definitely going to end up being a very much a powerhouse in this sport. Is you wouldn't believe the groves of people that came just to the Perry Open, and we'll see it probably tenfold here. But at the age, that was the most powerful thing that I saw. Very young and enthusiastic about this sport. You know, they spend a lot of time. Feder Gorst was a huge, huge attraction, and there's a reason for that. He said that on his YouTube channel that I think it's like 40 or 45% of his followers are Vietnamese. Nice shot there. Very cleanly struck.
And of course, the popularity of pool in the country we're in at the moment, Vietnam, isn't a new phenomenon. When you think about the first ever World Cup of pool, the Vietnamese team of Nguyen Tan Nam and Luong Chi Dong got to the semi-finals, actually. That was in Newport in Wales 17 years ago. And they actually gave the United States a run for their money in the semi-finals, losing 9-7.
Yeah, and you know, that's just like we're talking about, like the top players, the vets, they've been really good players for a while. But I think, again, the technique is going to get better here. and just a numbers game of so many interested in 9-ball pool, and not interested, just truly love it.
Yeah, that USA team at the inaugural World Cup of Pool in 2006 was Earl Strickland and Rodney Morris. Fine duo.
Oh yeah, and a duo that, okay. And a fine duo that's had a lot of success playing doubles in many types of events.
Finally, some daylight now, some serious daylight beginning to exist between these two. The scoreline is 6-2. Now, just before I ask Jeremy his question, I can tell you Jose Alberto Delgado, who much like Fedor Gorst is just the most friendly and warm individual. Well, I can tell you the Spaniard has beaten Win van Dat 9-1, so like his fellow countryman Jonas Suter Camino, their early morning engagement wasn't too stressful. Okay, the question is this: we've got 26 tables here. In your many years of playing pool, what was the most tables at a tournament you've experienced?
Well, a pro tournament, you
Yeah.
mean? Yeah, because they have some amateur events in America that have 300 or 400, national events. Probably 1992 at the Willards International. That was a 2-week event, a week of 8-ball and a week of 9-ball, and there were 512 players in each event, so that tells you how big it was. I don't know, 60 tables?
Wow.
Yeah, 55, 60 tables, yeah. It was one of the most awesome events I'd ever been a part of, and Efren Reyes beat Buddy Hall in the 8-ball final, and then the next week was the 9-ball. I actually just went to watch with a few buddies in '92. I started to become a pretty good player after playing 4 years, and we went to go watch. I ended up entering the 9-ball and did pretty well, considering I think I got top 32 out of 512. But then Efren Reyes lost to Johnny Archer in the final of the 9-ball. And at that time, for a very long time, it was the biggest tournament ever, purse-wise.
One of the great sights I saw, and I wasn't expecting it, it wasn't pool, it was the World Series of Poker when it was held over in the All Suites Hotel, the Rio. Basically, I was in Vegas on holiday, and I knew that Steve Davis, the snooker player, was going to play in the World Series of Poker, the main event that year.
The 10K entry.
Yeah, exactly. So we were over at the Rio anyway, and I thought I'm just going to go and see if I can see Steve and say hi. So I spoke to the lady at the desk and said, I've got a friend who's playing in this. Do you know where he is? And she said, well, no, but if you just go in there, you might find him. So I walked through these doors, and there's this immense scene where there's just table after table after table, 9 players I think on a table.
That's right.
And it was just endless, this room. It was just the most enormous place I've ever seen in my life, and of course got no chance of picking Steve out of that.
Yeah.
But yeah, that's one of the great scenes. Now then, on table 2, that was Jeffrey DeLuna, and by his standards a very subdued break-off.
Yeah, and you can see not too happy about it. But I'll tell you, from day to day, the break can change. Now back to our match on table 1 and starting to separate a little bit. Yeah, I used to go to the World Series a little bit with some friends because one of the big pro events was during May, and the World Series used to be in that same time when it was actually at the Horseshoe downtown, and that event had grown so much they had to move it from the Horseshoe and into a bigger venue, and it is so impressive, but can be a little intimidating walking in that World Series of Poker room.
Yeah, the first World Series of Poker, of course, was a very limited affair. I think Johnny Moss was the inaugural winner, and it was just a handful of people.
Yeah, and I used to hang out in Houston with some poker players that were attached to a family that was very involved with the Doyle Brunsons and the Johnny Moss, and of course Amarillo Slim, who won it, and big names from back then. All right, smart shot there. Trying to use the 5 and 9 to hold the cue ball. Got a little bit of an eclipse, but I think he can get at the blue too. Yeah, definitely. I think he can make it. It's amazing how small those competitive circles are and how close, different types of games and sports seem to draw people together.
Yes, and of course there was a World Series of Poker champion who had a Vietnamese link, Scotty Nguyen.
Yeah, big time. He was always one of my favorites to watch. Got to meet him a couple times there at the Horseshoe back in like the late 90s, mid 90s.
Yeah, he won the title in '98.
Yeah, baby. That's what he used to always like to say. I actually see him out there again now. He's kind of back out in the mix. Some of the late night shows and some of the so many different poker things going on now. It's kind of hard to keep up. Of course, we're, Nick Schulman, one of the greatest on the planet, does a lot of commentary for those shows and was a darn fine pool player at a young age. Ben Lamb, who also a great player that was also a pool player at one time.
By the way, the brief snippet we saw of Jeff DeLuna breaking off, that was because he just won the 9th rack against John Rebong. Tight affair that. DeLuna leading 5-4.
Yeah, DeLuna, who, like I said, can quietly make some noise here, was talked about so much and always is just because of his power in the game and the stroke he has. And maybe good, though. He's not being talked about quite so much. Just go about his business, see if he can make a run here in Hanoi. Yeah, it's just a little understruck.
Yes, another example that even though he's scoreline-wise in control of the match, I don't think he's in control of his game.
No, and he knows he's got to play more today, so this is going to start to wear on you a bit.
Because against higher quality opposition, those kind of balls, those kind of mistakes will not be committed.
Yeah, and this can creep in with anyone, it seems like, and everyone goes through it, but and this goes both ways, what I'm going to say, but you can play down to your competition sometimes, and then of course the other way, really get up for the occasion. I think we had, Tyler Steyer was going through that for a little while, where if it was one of the bigger names, he really brought out his best game and just sometimes would lose focus against a player where he was a favorite and sometimes a big favorite.
Well,
it's just growing pains, right, Phil?
Yeah. Now there, it was a case of hitting the red 3 before the blue 2, which of course is never recommended, and so again, ball in hand for Dao Phuc An.
Yeah, something must be mounting on one of the tables around here. There's a big crowd moving over. Is that Mika Iminen's table, maybe? Do we get a score on Mika?
Just trying to find it, Jeremy. It's one of those situations where there's so many matches in the first round, it's difficult to pin him down.
All right, in a good position here. Should just go forward a little bit. Well, he's kind of elevating. Nah, he's down level on the ball. Maybe a little rub on the 8 shouldn't be a problem. Not going to move it a whole lot. Wow, it's just been a little easy. But that's, again, that little decel, it looks like to me. And it just seems like anything may happen.
Well, I can tell you Mika Immonen is on table 3. He's playing Do Kai of the host nation, and Imonen 5-2 up.
Well,
Chris Milling 6-4 down against Japan's Takashi.
Well, that may be more of what they're looking at over there. I don't know.
There is a benefit, of course, to big names losing early. Carlo Biardo fits the bill here. We do get to see at some point, because of the schedule, some loser side matches, and we always like to see the big names on the loser side try and avoid what would be for them very early elimination.
Yeah, absolutely, and they better take advantage of it now. This World Nineball Tour is getting nothing but tougher, and that's exactly where it should head. We're definitely going to have some suspenseful matches for Players Tournament Life. A little more flow in the stroke, a little more pep in the step there the last few balls for Dao. And now an 8-9 to get back on the board.
Cue ball uncomfortably close to side cushion and indeed middle pocket. Not a certainty, this. Far from it. Yeah, you could almost see that coming.
Yeah, it doesn't matter. That's why the rail, preach about staying off the rail, and just almost seems like no matter the shot, if you're cueing near that cushion, anything might happen. Ooh, this is super thin. Yeah, that's not going to get it.
You might think, with no positional thoughts there, why was he playing with such extreme side? It was to get the cue ball on that side of the table, just in case he did miss.
Yeah, and some people like the little inside English for thin ones. You know, a little preference at times. Certainly not going to spin that with a ton of outside. It'd be either inside or straight. Now, you can't go for this bank. I don't think it'll tighten up enough. When you're close enough to this ball, you got to try and edge it and run the cue ball. Because, you know, when you're close, edging it should be doable. Tell you, this bank, the way the tables are playing, I think a possibility, but he did leave it very awkward and maybe not even playable. No, definitely not playable. So he's going to either double bank this to the top rail, putting the 9 on the top rail, cue ball down on the bottom rail, maybe just cuts it one rail off the side cushion and tries to do the same thing. He went in and played the double. I guess that would be a treble in snooker. Couple options here. Of course, the main option is attacking. Twice.
I tell you what, you know, I think that 9 ball might have just veered off slightly. That could have been his second fluke 9 ball of the match. As it is, it might well be the beginning of the end. Indeed, 7-2. You have to say, and be fair, this has not been the match of the highest quality. But Dao Phuc An, the likelihood of the outsider coming through and winning this one is decreasing all of the time. Kien Duc finds himself on the hill on table 17 against Daniel Idraki at 8-2. Liu Ri Teng 5-4 up on Luong Van Nam. Marcel Price all the way from Wales Now 5-3 up on Frank Gadsden. Win Quang Viet 5-2 up on Mohamed Riyad. Lee Din Min 4-3 over Tuan Win. BJ Usuri, for those of you watching in the good old USA, well, he's now on the hill against Lee Ngok An at 8-4. Same thing for Jan van Leerup, who has an even greater lead over Win Tuan Son at 8-1. And So Shaw from the UK, he's getting close to the hill, 7-4 over Win Phuc An. And indeed, just before the break off, I can tell you, BJ Usuri is through 9-4. Mind you, Jeremy, Usuri will not have an easy task. Next up, his round 2 opponent is John Vicedo of the Philippines. The Philippines, that's the key there, isn't it? They've got a wealth of talent.
Yeah, absolutely. And one thing about the Philippines, you just don't see a stray one come over to play. It's always going to be a really, really good player. And I was kind of expecting another one of those questions there, Phil, in between the games.
I'll limit them, ration them.
There we go. We got a long week. A little heavy.
They're like wins for my beloved Anaheim Angels. They come very rarely.
Well, you and I started to talk about it yesterday. I hate to say it, but if they can't keep Ohtani, I think they should go ahead and deal Trout as well. I think they got to give him a chance to win, and it just makes sense for the team.
I remember, forget where I was, but I remember the moment when we signed Albert Pujols. That was great. If we could keep Ohtani, that would be perhaps even better.
Yeah, it's going to be a hard one, though. I mean, which, don't get me wrong, I mean, those people know in the clubhouse, and Ohtani certainly does, but you know, Trout was injured off and on throughout the year. Didn't have Rendon, and of course, I think Rendon needs time at the table like these pool players, you know. And he's been hurt pretty much the entire season. And I don't think you got to see the best of the Angels by any means. And maybe Ohtani will know that better than anyone and give him another chance, because I think it's solely up to him, really. Go ahead, Phil.
No, I was just going to say, sooner or later things will happen at the Big A. The halo will light up on a regular basis.
Yeah, and it's been all kinds of little things for Dao just getting away. I mean, they usually had really good cue ball. You can see the speed's been off at time from time, and missed a few tough shots, but it's been mainly the ones you suspect he buries at a super high rate, where he's had some errors. But
it's been a real mixed bag. As we say in the UK, a curate's egg. He spotted some really nice balls. I remember a 9 from distance in particular, and yet certain mistakes have been a real surprise.
Yeah, and you know, in anticipation to today, even for a veteran, could be a little overexciting, right? Maybe get you a little out of sorts, but I'm learning a lot of those English sayings, by the way. Been hanging out with Carl a bit too much, I think. I like them, though, for the most part. I'm talking about the sayings. Okay. So he's just going to come 2 rails up the left. Takes a little angle on the 9, or is he trying to get a little bit better? Oh, yeah.
Well, 2 things there. How did he not pot the 8? Secondly, as those 2 balls were converging, you would have thought the scratch on the opposite pocket was certain.
Yeah, it's kind of really like you said. It hit twice with a lot of force. And of course, there are deep shelves on the Racing here, and getting more difficult, it seems, every game.
You made the point right at the start, and you've been proved totally correct. Dao Phuc An definitely has been very nervous in this match. When he looks back on it, the chances he's had, I think he'll be regretful.
Yeah, definitely wanted to perform better, especially with those chances. But, you know, hopefully he just kind of says, hey, I'm going to do better next time. I'm going to learn from this and move on. We've all went through it. I was nothing personal with the young man Dao. I was a pretty darn good player the first year I went out professionally. And in 7 tournaments, I think I won 1 match. And it was just purely nerves and the setting and everything else. Just took me a while to get used to it. Cost me a few dollars, but I wouldn't change it for the world. 9-ball, no.
Well, as we say in snooker commentary, when someone plays a mystery shot like that, answers on a postcard.
All right, but this is the good thing with the tighter pockets. You can't take, you know, any shot off at all, just like that 8-ball. Of course, they're supposed to make it at what you think 95 out of 100, but once you start to talk about the implications of the tournament, the nerves and everything else, that percentage drops off a bit.
Now, this is a sentence you rarely hear in pool commentary. Dao Phuc An labouring to an 8-2 lead. But that's been the story. He's making really hard work of this, even though numerically it's very comfortable.
Yeah, but mentally not. And he's laughing about it now. And, you know, he's a veteran and been in some big situations, like you said, a quarterfinalist there in the World Nineball Championship. So maybe he just leaves this behind. And he'll have to, because he'll play again later today.
Jan van Leerup of Holland is through, 9-1 over Win Tuan Son. And the way things have gone here, even though Dao is playing poorly and making lots of misjudgments in all departments, I would find a full-scale recovery from Dao Phuc An hard to comprehend.
Yeah, and that's why we always say in tournament pool especially, if you can just play, you know, kind of 10%, 15% under your best game and just consistently do that, you're gonna win a ton of matches. It's not always got to be the, you know, highest gear you have. It's just got to be that steady one. And then that higher gear just kind of comes along without you knowing it. Oh, 9-ball, golden break to finish the match.
Well, it wasn't a golden performance, but the highlight came right at the end. The checkered flag taken with a burst of speed. And so Dao Phuc An wins the match by 9 racks to 2. It was a contest absolutely brimmed full of errors